I don't care what the worst of the worst is that we have in our lives. What kind of house we live in, what kind of car we drive. It's a blessing compared to what I saw in Uganda. Uganda is in East Africa. It has a lot of malaria, HIV, AIDS. There's a lot of Catholic there. There is a lot of Muslim there. And the one thing I never thought I would come in contact with in my life was witchcraft. There is witchcraft there. I have stories about that. I think I shared one of them last year about the little boy that got his fingers cut off. Broke my heart. I never thought I would have to deal with anybody that was under the influence of witchcraft. But there's power in a shoebox. We have said that phrase many times. I have said it over the years. There's power in a shoebox. And you know what? There truly is power in a shoebox. I'll tell you a little bit about myself because I don't want to talk about myself. I want to talk about those children. I am Linda McDannel. I'm an area coordinator for Operation Christmas Child in the Louisville area. I oversee a team of about 30 volunteers in the Louisville area of 9 counties. I did go to Uganda last year. It was a privilege to be chosen to go to Uganda, and it's an experience I will never, ever forget. Even when I see those pictures, I've seen them a gazillion times, they still bring tears to my eyes. And trust me, I'm not a crier, but those will do it. I want to tell you about some prayers that I had before I left. And I thought I was ready for this journey, but never in my wildest dreams was I actually. I wasn't. I had prayed to God to provide safe travels, good health, those kind of things. He did that. There was a couple of times I wasn't so sure if we were going to have safe travels. And if you want to know about having a MK-40 held at you, I'll tell you about it. It's not a pleasant feeling when you think that you're not going to come home. That my first thought went through my head was, because my grandchildren are little guys, will my grandchildren ever remember me? I wasn't worried about dying. I wasn't even worried about leaving my husband. That was my kids' problem. But I wanted to know if my grandchildren would ever remember me. But God got us out of there. He got us out safely. I had good health there, not so much when I got home, because I forgot that I hadn't had all that grease and stuff in my system. And when I get home, what do? I eat bacon and eggs and get sick. Okay. So he provided safe travels and good health. I asked God to allow me to leave a part of me in Uganda. And he did that. I asked God to show me a very special little boy. And he did that. I asked God to show me what he needed me to see, even if it meant breaking my heart. Be very careful about what you ask for. Because you know what? God answers prayers. You want to start the PowerPoint? I just love this button thing. There's the team I traveled with all week. If you'll look on the far side, the guy that has the Operation Christmas Child shirt on, the guy next to him, he is the Big Daddy. That's the only way I know to say it. His name is Jim Harrelson. He is president of Operation Christmas Child worldwide. Not U.S., but worldwide. Worldwide. A very passionate man. I forget I have a button. Bazungu, does anybody know what that is or remember from last year? That's Swahili, and in Swahili, that means white person. That's the only word in Swahili that I learned last year. When we first got there, well, the next day, we went to a lesson that was being taught on the Greatest Journey. And if you saw in the video, the Greatest Journey, it's the discipleship program that follows up the shoebox. This is where we were headed. We were in Kampala, Uganda. Those are pretty much typical roads and areas that you walk through. It was described to us as the slum of the slums. We got a lot of those looks because, again, most of these people, especially the children, had never seen a white person. So we got a lot of blank looks. Those were the children that were taking part in the greatest journey. They loved learning about Jesus. They could recite scripture that would put us to shame. I'm sorry, but they could. I couldn't really understand them because they were not speaking English, but we did have an interpreter. They were so eager to learn about God. Again, that's part of the greatest journey. It's kind of like our vacation Bible school, Sunday school material type thing. There they are praying. I just love that little girl. I wish I'd have found out her name. She was so intent in studying her workbook. And every time the teacher would ask a question, she would be the first one that'd have her hand up. I just loved her. That's the outside of the classroom we were in, and that's after the class was out. They love getting their picture taken, and then they love seeing their picture on your digital camera. Those are just precious children. I'm sorry, I just took pictures of children. I loved it. That's pretty much, that was coming out of that area. The next picture, if you'll see that those piles, it's trash is what it is. The one thing I learned when I was in Uganda about packing shoe boxes, take stuff out of the wrappers, out of the packages. I never did because I wanted to give the impression that it was new, and that's okay too, but never realized it. That's their waste disposal. They don't have landfills, they don't have recycle centers. That is actually a small one compared to some that I saw. So I now take toothpaste out of the boxes, I take Hot Wheels out of the package, because that plastic and that cardboard is going to wind up in one of those piles. Beautiful skies you've ever seen in Uganda. Just beautiful skies. Every day we were there. Gorgeous. This was our first distribution. This was at a Presbyterian church in Entebbe, Uganda. They were mostly Catholic Muslims, and they had some witchcraft there. It wasn't as prevalent there as it was in some of the other areas. There's a Pastor Milton Lipa. You talk about being treated like royalty. They treated us like royalty. I mean, they were so thankful we were there. You have to remember, a lot of these churches and groups where we take shoe boxes to another countries, some of them wait 4 and 5 years to get shoe boxes. It's just not like because they want shoe boxes this year that they're going to get them. It may take 4 and 5 years. Why? Because there aren't enough shoe boxes. So they're just so thankful when we come. If you ever wonder how we hand out the shoe boxes, we just set them up on whatever we can set them up on. We break them down boy, girl, age groups, and just hand them out. You hear stories about how a certain box made it to a certain child because they had prayed for a certain thing. That's an act of God. That's a God thing. That has nothing to do with us. That's a God thing. They love music, musical items, harmonicas, the little flute things, anything that makes a noise. They love it. Love it. Love sunglasses. If you noticed, I've got a lot of pictures of them in sunglasses. There's a really cute one in this one. Love sunglasses. If you ever wonder about whether to send scarves, gloves, hats, don't ever think twice about it. Do it. We were in Africa. It was very hot, trust me. It was over 100 degrees in the shade. They loved hats and gloves and scarves. Now, if it were me, I would take it out, put it on. Okay, it looks pretty good. Put it back in my box. No. They would still have them on when they were leaving. They loved the hats and gloves and scarves. And they don't have to be homemade. They can be store-bought like mine. Like I say, hats are a big hit. Big hit. Love them. He was just another one of those cute little children I just love. I wanted to bring them all home so much. Bubbles. Now, first of all, we all know bubbles cannot go in our shoebox, right? Okay. Bubbles cannot go in your shoebox, but they can go in your luggage. We took bubbles. Those children had never seen, you can't take them on your carry-on either. They had never seen bubbles. A, 50 cents bottle of bubbles brought more enjoyment to them than what we would spend $100 on a video game for one of our kids. I'm sorry, it's that simple. At one of the distributions, we had the bubbles that has the big wand. Oh my gosh. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. That was after a shoebox distribution. They were all just, they're normal children. They like to play. They like to play with one another. And that was them as they were leaving. I took like over 1,000 pictures, so these are just a sample. That's actually Lake Victoria. We were leaving that one distribution and going to another one. That's Lake Victoria. That was our geography lesson for the week. It's the source of the Nile River. And we just stopped and had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich there. This is our next distribution. This is St. Philip's Church in Busabala, Gangu. I have to look at the words in order to be able to pronounce them. This is where God allowed me to leave a part of myself. That's the pastor's house. That's the pastor's house. And you know what? He was very proud of it. He told us he lived in that front part because he didn't need the rest of it. It was just him. He didn't need that space. He lived in the front part. He was very proud of his home. That was their Sunday school building. Those were not children that were getting shoe boxes. Why? Because there weren't enough. See the little face looking in the window? He was outside. And you ask, well, why couldn't you bring him in and give him a shoebox? Do you want to bring a child in where there's a bunch of children getting toys knowing you cannot give that child anything? No, you don't. He didn't cause any trouble. He just watched. He knew something good was going on in there. There's another one. This was the same distribution. Now you understand the urgency of why we need to pack shoe boxes. I finally got to pass out a shoebox. I've been waiting years to do that, and I finally got to. I made sure I told every child that I handed a shoebox to that Jesus loved them. That was that same distribution. We were just outside playing. We always played with the kids, blew bubbles, did face paint, whatever they wanted to do, we did it. We also gave jump rope lessons. This little girl, you have to remember, these children they don't know what some of that stuff is. I was telling a lady earlier, she was asking about what to put in a shoebox. I said they love the little dum-dum suckers that you buy. They loved them, but they don't know that you have to take the wrapper off. So they don't know these things. We take for granted. They don't know them. This little girl got a jump rope, and you could tell by the look on her face, she didn't know what to do with it. She kept on trying to hold it up to her ear like you would a cell phone or something. I don't know what she was going to do with it. But Kathy Kendrick, she is an area coordinator from the Danville area. And she looked at me and I looked at her and I said, what are we going to do? She said, well, one of us is going to have to show her how to jump it. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I'll take the pictures. You can jump the rope. I said, you are much younger and you're a lot closer to the ground than I am. So she got to do the lessons and I took the picture. I thought that was a pretty good trade-off. He is my toothless Spider-Man. Superman, one of those S words. Superman. My toothless Superman. Again, precious children showing off their sunglasses. The equator. It has nothing to do with passing out a shoebox. but it also tells you how God provided for safe travels and for our safety. We weren't scheduled to go to the equator. The equator was 30 minutes tops from where we were. If you ever want to know what's at the equator, nothing. My kids kept on telling me that, Mom, why do you want to go to the equator? There's nothing there. But I want to go there. Well, I did. Didn't know I was going to, but I did. Okay. That's what you find at the equator minus the people. That's it. There's a couple of shops there, you know. But what had happened was on Tuesday night, we were told about it the next morning. No, it happened on Monday night. We were told on Tuesday morning. Samaritan's Purse has a field office in Uganda. And on Monday night, there was a security guard there, like there always is, with Samaritan's Purse. Someone broke in, murdered that security guard on the spot. Well, Samaritan's Purse wasn't going to take any chance. We were supposed to be with Samaritan's Purse the next day doing a community service project. They didn't know why this guy was murdered. They didn't want to take any chances. So they pulled us off of that service that day, took us on a side trip to the equator. We did not know it until we got back that night that Samaritan's Purse had also hired some extra security to be there with us. But that's why we got to the equator. So if you ever want to know what's at the equator, if you ever want to take a trip there, that's what you're going to find. That board that's right down the middle, I was actually straddling it. Northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, that's what you're going to get right there. Nothing big. But it was an experience. This is Holy Trinity Church. This is the church that we called the Church on the Mountain because you couldn't get there by the bus we were in, and it was a task to get there by our feet. Trust me, it was a task. There's Reverend Nelson in the middle, Deacon Jeff, and then Betty. Betty's kind of like over all the Sunday school classes there, or actually for the whole area in the Holy Trinity faith there. Again, the boxes are sorted out, ready to go. They hold on to their shoe boxes until everybody gets one. They don't even try to open them. You tell them not to, and they don't. They're holding on to them. We're coming down the mountain. That's actually one of the better parts of it. But you know what? I'd go back and do it today. I would do it today. And I don't do heat well, but I would do it. We were getting off the bus, and those are those looks again because they'd never seen white people. This is where God showed me a very special little boy. We were allowed to take a shoebox with us that we had packed, and we were allowed to pick out the child to give it to. I let my 4-year-old grandson, I took him shopping, and he packed that shoebox all by himself. I took it. We were on our next to last day of distributions. I had not found that little boy. I kept on asking him, well, how will I know that this is the little boy? And everybody said, you will know. Okay? Well, on Thursday morning I got up, put that shoebox again in my backpack, and I said, you know what, I'm just tired of worrying about this. I'm tired about looking for a little boy. I told God I wanted him to bring me the little boy, which is what I should have done on Monday, but I didn't. That was the hottest day of the week. That was my most emotional day of the week, my most physically challenging day of the week. It was on Thursday. I suffer from migraines. I was working on one that day, and it was absolutely the hottest day. That is All Nations Church in Wakiso, Luongo. That is their church. Now, the orange tarpaulin, that was put there because we were coming. That is normally not there. They wanted us to have some shelter. So they put that there. So you'll notice a lot of the pictures that are taken there kind of have an orange tint to them. That's their Pastor John. There they are. We're doing a program. At each distribution, one of the team members shared the gospel. We just did various things with them. Actually, I was doing it that afternoon, but not at that time. But when I got there, the children started coming in, and there was this little boy that looked at me. And you ever see somebody and look at them in the eyes, and you can tell that you automatically have a connection, that there's something there? This little boy looked at me, and I poked the lady next to me, and I said, "That's him." And she said, "Well, how do you know?" I said, "Well, I know. You said God would show me. That's him." It was just something about him. Oh, that's Elijah packing his shoebox. I forgot I put that in there, you know. That was his shoebox. You'll notice the little dinosaur there, that it wouldn't fit in the shoebox. I said, "Elijah, baby," I said, that dinosaur's not going to fit. He said, "Oh, but Grammy, you have to take it because he needs it. He needs it." Well, that little boy got that dinosaur. There he is. Now, God showed me this special little boy. When we got there, we always asked them if they had a way to put a piece of tape on them to write their name. It would be great so we could call them by their name. Not many places did, just a couple. They didn't have their names on them at the time. I had already picked him out, and then someone came around and they started putting names on him. And do you know what his name was? It was Elijah. He was the only Elijah I came across all week. God showed me a special little boy. And as an added note that I did not know last year, the Greatest Journey discipleship program that they go through, I did find out from Charles, which was our contact person there that traveled with us all week. He went back and visited some of the villages periodically. He was one of them that made a profession of faith at the end of the Greatest Journey. So, you know what? I'm going to get to see Elijah in heaven again. And that excites me. I will get to introduce him to my little grandson. And that's more of them. They just, their faces just light up. I don't know how to explain it other than the fact they just light up. There he is. I just love looking at him. But that was where God showed me a special little boy. I had been looking for him all week, but when I finally told God, or asked God to show him to me, guess what he did? The very next distribution, he showed me this little boy. This is, I can't even remember, this is All Nations Church. This is where God broke my heart. We got there early. I had forgotten a lot of preschool songs from when I was teaching younger ones, but they all come back. So the kids never know why they're invited to these distributions. They're just invited. They don't know that they're going to get a gift or that they're going to have fun or there's going to be people there. They're just invited. Well, when they start seeing kids gather, if there's other kids in the area, they start showing up too. But again, there's only so many shoeboxes. We had to close these doors. They had a list of children that were to get in for the shoebox distribution. If your name wasn't on the list, didn't get in. I was holding a little girl, precious little girl, but I couldn't take her in with me because her name wasn't on the list. I couldn't sneak her in. Couldn't take her with me. Had to put her down. She cried and cried. They couldn't go in with us. And that's what happened when those doors shut. They were very heavy doors that sounded like big iron doors. And I'll never forget that sound. I went back there. You asked why did I go back there and take that picture? Because I had to. I needed to. I needed a reminder of why I do what I do, why we pack shoeboxes. I have a bigger picture of her back there. I think of her every time I think that I have bought enough stuff for shoeboxes. I think of her. I see that in my face. She didn't get a shoebox that day. And more than likely, she probably won't because, again, they don't go back to the same village for 5 years. but hopefully she was able to hear about the gospel. Another one of my distributions. This was also the distribution where I shared my testimony. I shared my favorite Bible verse, which is Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God. I have a tendency to kind of want to do stuff on my own and forget to stop and ask God to help. So I shared that Bible verse with them. There they are. Very intent. Listen all the time. There I am. It's a lot harder to work with an interpreter than what you think. They're getting ready to open their shoe boxes. This is our last distribution. Now, we were told that there was a lot of witchcraft in this area and a lot of Muslim in this area. It's Deliverance Church in Sita Makuno. Love the picture. Love it. Timothy. Timothy could speak very good English. He was a very happy little boy. And I said, Timothy, why are you so happy? He said, because I'm going to heaven. I said, that is great. I will see you there. Cyrus. For the life of me, could not get Cyrus to talk. I wanted to love on him so bad. Timothy apparently got tired of listening to me trying to get Cyrus to talk. So finally, he told me, he said, he can't talk. It makes sense why he wouldn't respond to me. I still picked him up and I loved on him. Maybe that's all he needed. I don't know. I was there when Cyrus got his shoebox because the little guys need help. I was helping him. When Cyrus opened his shoebox, he started digging down in it. In the bottom was a red Hot Wheels car. He took that Hot Wheels out. He held it up. I was standing on the back side of him. He turned around and looked at me and said, "Look." That was his version of "look." And then he never shut his mouth the rest of the time. He couldn't speak real audibly because he hadn't been talking, but it was a step in the right direction. Probably one of my favorite pictures. It doesn't matter how you wear them, they're still going to work. I didn't have the heart to tell him they were upside down, so I just let him be. He thought he was cool. He liked it. I love that picture. It doesn't matter how you wear them. Just remember that. It doesn't matter how you try it sometime. Try it. Doesn't matter how you wear them, they're still going to work. This is the picture. It's just the ladies. The men wouldn't do it. And you can tell the two ladies that were from Kentucky, we are the ones without our shoes on. Okay? There was one from Alabama and one from New York, but the Kentucky girls didn't have their shoes on. And this reminds me of the verse in Romans, how beautiful are the feet of those that bring good news. That was actually, we were going to the airport that night. That picture was taken, I didn't know it was taken until I got home. And someone sent it to me. That was taken at the distribution that we called the Church on the Mountain. Remember me showing you Deacon Jeff? We always had circle prayer before we left for the day. And he was standing next to me and we were holding hands. Well, apparently somebody wasn't praying because somebody took that picture. And as you can see, my arm is full of silly bands and stuff. I had at times silly bands all up my arm because we just handed them out to the kids. They loved them. But I love that because that picture tells me that we're praying. We're in two different countries, two different nationalities, but we're all praying to the same God. And I love that picture. This is the last picture, and that's just as a reminder. Those were children that were at the church where I found my Elijah, watching as we were having a shoebox distribution so that you can understand the urgency, because there are power in those shoeboxes. Yeah, there's toys and there's candy, but there's power. It's the gospel, and that's what it is. This is our instrument to get there, to share the gospel with them. So if you have any questions, please grab me afterwards. Linda's got my email. I will be more than glad to share anything with you, okay? Thank you for having me again this year. We enjoy the drive up here. So thank you all so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Linda, for being here. We're so blessed to have you come back a second year, and I'm sure that other churches, seek, to have you, and for us to have you the second year is a real blessing for us. I don't know what touches everyone else, but I heard her say 2 or 3 times, there's just not enough shoe boxes, and the pictures bear that out. And it's really a sad thing when you think of the number of boxes that go, but yet the number of children that are still underserved, with the boxes. So what we want to do is we just kind of want to close this Sunday with, as far as we want to set our goal, and we wanted to do it this year as a church. Last year we decided, actually Linda set the number last year. So last week we threw out some numbers that we could all consider, and I suggested that we pray about it. You remember we talked about last year's goal. We talked about the actual count that we had accumulated. We also talked about a slightly higher goal than that, and then even one real stretch goal. Those numbers were 325 was our actual goal, 333 was our actual count. We talked about doing 350, 375, or 400. But I think, I don't know what occurs to me. I know how special it is to the entire church, and in our family, I know we enjoy shopping for the Philly shoe boxes more than we enjoy shopping for each other. It's just really, it's really touching. And so I guess it's just, this year, if we think and we pray about it, if we did 1 box last year, is there any way we could do 2? Or if you did 2, could you do 3? But I just want to, maybe we'll just have a show of hands as we set our goal that we'll attempt to meet, and then maybe even hopefully exceed. But last year's goal was 325, and we'll just ask with a show of hands how many would be in favor of using last year's goal of 325. I see you, Curtis. Does that mean lower than 325? Okay, the actual count last year was 333. How many would be in favor of 333? You don't like, I see that, what that means. You don't like that number either. Okay. A goal of 350 would be a bit of a stretch, but how many would be in favor of 350? Okay, that's a pretty good number. We could stretch a bit more, 375. How many would be in favor of 375? And 400. We have some support for all these numbers. Seems like, again, I want to see 350 again. How many? Raise your hands at 350. I should have somebody counting these with me. And then 375. It's a good show there too. I think it looks to be 350 is the number that has moved most, which would be 17 more than our actual from last year. But as we know, there's still room for improvement on that. We'll work with 350, and we'll see what God does. Maybe He stretches it even further this year. So thanks for your participation in that little process. But I think this way it sets it as a church's goal, and we all had a chance to participate. So 350 will be our number then.